Hello and welcome to the broadcast from the Noachide court in Jerusalem, one of the courts of the Sanhedrin. I'm reading from the excellent book, You Are My Witnesses, by Rabbi Yoel Schwartz, the head of the Noachide court, from the aspects of law, mitzvah, otherwise known as mitzvot, which is probably the best translation is not commandments, because it's true. Yes, God commands, God asks. God's desire is in what He asks from us through the prophets, and especially Moses, the master of all the prophets. So here we are, and he says the foundation of all of the mitzvot that are incumbent upon man is the faith that God exists, and that which He asks from us exists, and that we fulfill that which He asks from us. This is as the sages of the Talmud of blessed memory, our sages, teach us that Habakkuk, the prophet, Habakkuk was the son of the Shunammite woman, who the boy had died, and Elisha the prophet came and resurrected him. And he too became a prophet, and in the second chapter of his great prophecy, verse 4, he said, "A righteous man lives by his faith. Sadik b'emunoto yichyeh." So the sages said, first the sages said, we look through the whole Torah of Moshe, the 5 books of the Pentateuch, and we find 613 things that God is asking us to do. Oh, the people were saying, "Oi, how could I do all of these things? How could I have to from before I wake up in the morning until after I go to sleep at night, I'll be nothing but trying to keep track of what I'm supposed to be doing." And they gave up. A lot of people just gave up. People of faith said, "Yes, I have faith, I believe in God, but how could I do all of this?" So the Talmud goes on, and the sages of the Sanhedrin in the ancient times said, "Okay, so we're going to divide the principles of faith into a smaller number. Right? Say, I don't remember the exact, 113, whatever." Eventually they realized that you could sum up all of the mitzvot with this one verse from Habakkuk, that a righteous man lives by his faith, because the point of being the starting point, the very beginning point of all of this is to have faith. I'm opening up an aside from the book, as is my way. The great author Herman Wouk, in the book This Is My God, he starts off his book by saying, if you don't believe in God, there's no reason for you to read this book. This book requires faith to have meaning. And so that's just like the sages said when they summed up the whole Torah in one verse, that a tzaddik lives by his faith. Again, another prophet, Jeremiah, said in the 9th chapter of his prophecies, "On this everyone shall praise greatly. Use your intellect and know me. For I am the one who does loving kindness and justice and righteousness in the land. Because these are the things that I have desired." So what is faith? This is establishing God as the creator, as the one who runs the planets, who causes the stars to move in their paths, the one who started the Big Bang, obviously, and the one who not only has his providence on the whole creation in general, but actually his providence reaches everybody in the world, and I dare say every element of creation, every atom is existing because of God's will. Find me a physicist who can say how an atom stays in its path. Find me a physicist who can explain why the stars turn around, why the planet revolves. Maimonedes in ancient times said very simply that it's a physical principle that when you ever have a force in motion, it has a force acting upon it. The force that acts upon the whole universe is called God. You could call him by a number of names. In English, we call him God. Him, her, it. It doesn't really matter. The Torah speaks in the language of men and women. So, God's providence. We are not deists. Noahides, whose religion we promote and see as tremendously valuable for all of humanity. Noahides don't believe in that God started the whole business and doesn't care about the whole business. God cares. What? God is a person, that he cares. Even as somebody who believes might say this. This is faith in God. That God cares about you and your life. And you can see it's scientifically proven in the New England Journal of Medicine. Studies show that when you have a sick person who has a group of people praying for him, whether he knows about it or whether he doesn't even know about it, that he has a much better chance of recovery than somebody who no one is praying for, even a believer or a non-believer. So I'm not here to prove that God exists. If you don't believe that God exists, then you have your homework to do. But if you have any belief that there's a force running the worlds, all things great and small, then that's a starting point to understand what a mitzvah is, so that God would want something from his creation. God is goodness, is beyond goodness too, but he has the attribute we call goodness. The infinite dresses in attributes. The attribute that he dresses in goodness wants his creation also to have good and to live well and be healthy. And there's a purpose for the suffering that happens in the world, but that's not our discussion. And he cares for us in the suffering, and he cares for us in the good times. Rambam, Maimonedes, said about 1,000 years ago, in a letter he wrote to Rav Chasdai, Rambam wrote, the wise men of truth, our sages of blessed memory, said that the righteous people from the nations of the world, what we call Hastei Umot Olam, or you might say righteous Gentiles, Noahides. The Noahides all have a portion in the world to come. Any man of any race, creed, color, who is a good person, and what is good, we measure it by the 7 Noachide laws, that these are moral laws binding on all of humanity. Anybody who follows these laws has a portion in the world to come. What is the world to come? Whatever comes. The world that's always coming, the future. Or perhaps the world to come, meaning the person has a future. If you're good, you have a future. If one is not so good, their future is going to be a little different. It's not going to be the world to come that we're aiming for. So, but the Rambam, Maimonedes, puts a caveat, a condition on the statement that the righteous people of the nations of the world have a portion in the world to come. That is, if they apprehend knowledge of what is proper behavior, right action. And the right action is in order to attain the knowledge of God. Remember what the words of Jeremiah? What does Jeremiah, the voice of God, say? He says, everybody is going to dance in the streets and dance in their houses of worship. On this principle, use your mind and know me, with a capital M. Because I am the one who does loving kindness, who is kind and creates justice and righteousness and charity in the world. God's charity for the world is His caring for the world. Because these are the things I have desired. Thus spake the Lord. So in summation of this segment, we're going to say how does a Noachide, follower of the 7 Noachide laws, express his faith? I just said, by following the 7 Noachide laws. And they are. The first Noachide law is belief in God. Knowing that there is one God. And the belief in God in our next segment is divided into the love of God and praying to God, thanking God for all His goodness that He does with us, trusting in God, honoring God, sanctifying God, the prohibition of blaspheming or deriding God, not mocking God, God forbid, and staying away from those whose intent is only to weaken our faith and make us disbelieve. So with this love of God, this prayer and the thanks, we express the basic tenet of all religions and the axiom for any religion in the world, which is to believe. Thank you very much. This has been Bezalel Edwards from the Noachide Court in Jerusalem.